Auzubillahi minash shaitwanir rajeem. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and a very warm welcome to World This Morning. I am your host Hajra Satti and joining me is Fahim Bangesh, and I think it's a very literal and a metaphorical warm welcome. How are you feeling, Fahim?
Exactly, but I'm very well, alhamdulillah. It's all about how you feel on the inside as far as your spiritual health is concerned, as far as your mental health is concerned. That is pretty good.
Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, and I think what more blessings could be asked from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But Fahim, obviously we usually chip in about the weather, what is going on and what's not. And Fahim was saying that, I think that the weather patrons and the fallacies in them are defying the conventional norms of the Met Department, because we are constantly getting the notification that it is going to be rain soon, but there is no rain in the sight. I hope
that grammatical part of their sentence, it may rain. Well, that may is continuously a may, because we're not receiving any rainfall as far as Islamabad Pindi are concerned.
Right.
And we're waiting still for that and to get some respite from the intense heat that we're receiving in Islamabad Pindi. But yes, let's hope for the best. And but still, it's still worrisome because people have predicted a very high amount of rainfall. But
True.
yeah.
Right, and we are going to see and witness how things unroll for us. But today we have a very interesting discussion lined up, and this is a topic, this is a theme that is never out of place, because this is a very global sort of a theme.
Yes.
And we feel that it is particularly resonating with every society, and for Pakistan we can say that. And we are going to discuss the women empowerment and how does it play in the financial inclusion, or in the larger scheme of things when we count the financial inclusions. And few days ago we also had this discussion where we talked about that how women contribute towards the general economy of the country, and especially in terms of the agriculture. So we have seen particularly that how they are an invisible labor force. They are working in the fields, and especially with the rapid urbanization and the globalization that is going on. So their men, they leave their houses and they go in search of the job to the larger city areas to improve their livelihoods, leaving the women behind. So they are not just responsible for nurturing their kids and looking their households, and for also for the agricultural work, right? So most of the Pakistani society, they grow their own organic food. So how is that contributing? Why there is even a need for having this separate term called gendered financial inclusion, right? And how can we make a Pakistani more inclusive society in terms of the gender inclusion, and how they can become a more visible workforce when we talk of the Pakistan's GDP. So without any further ado and without further monopolizing the conversation, we are very glad that we have been joined by a banker who has graced us on the multiple occasions in our studio. She happens to be Miss Kurutulain Chaudhary. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Right.
Kurutulain, it's a pleasure having you here. Now, we know that you used to be in commercial banking before when we had you in our program, but now you've come into microfinance, which is quite relevant to our topic, because we're talking about inclusion of women, and that's one way that women can be included into the as far as financial inclusion of this gender is concerned. Now, would you also tell us about all sorts of initiatives that you are taking as far as this aspect of the banking is concerned, because it's relatively a new concept as far as the entire banking is concerned, right? So if you can highlight some points regarding the initiatives.
So thank you for having me, and yes, I was previously with the commercial side of the banking, but I just felt that with the microfinance, because microfinance basically looks at the low income and underserved people, and especially when we talk about women, although they are 50%, almost 50%, 48% of our population, but most of them are unbanked and they're not financially included in the whole financial ecosystem. So what I felt was that, it was needed to be, a lot of work needed to be done on that, and which is why I shifted from the commercial side to the microfinance side, because I felt that there was a lot of need of work that needed to be done over there, especially when we talk specifically about women. So what we do over here in microfinance is that, we take different initiatives. So what the first thing that we need to do is we need to give financial literacy to especially when we talk about women, because that is something that is lacking, I feel, and there is not much awareness, especially in women, due to our social culture, due to our, being a male dominated society. So it's somehow always looked upon that women don't really need to have that awareness, or let's say be financially included, because it's always the men who are usually doing all the work and bringing in the money in the house. So I think the first and foremost step that we need to do is we need to create that awareness, which is where I talk about financial literacy. So what we do is we partner up with different partners, and we do different financial literacy sessions in which we ourselves go, we become financial partners of different institutions, whether they're working in agriculture, whether it's the State Bank itself, whether it's other international partners that are working on women in financial inclusion. So we go, we identify these places where, and then we have sessions with the women. I personally go out in the field.
I see.
Bring them awareness to that. Apart from that, we take we have different initiatives. For example, at Mobilink, we'll have like we have a Women Inspiration Network, which is that it's like a whole journey that we take the women through, which is upskilling them financially, giving them financial literacy, then doing research and designing products according to their needs, and then in the end, after empowering them, showcasing their success. We have success stories which we show on our different platforms as well, which I feel then encourages other women as well to come on board.
And Kurutulan, since you said you have been into the field, you have done the field work, how do you find the response? Because obviously many of the household men, they find it very offensive that their women should be included financially.
Yes.
And that's unfortunately the concept in our social, the society that we live in. So what's the response like? How do are they more receptive? Do they want to work? Do they want to be included? Or do they just feel like, okay, the men should do it? That's all.
So when I've been going out into different, like especially all over Pakistan, when I go and I have a talk with these women, so I've always felt that these women have a lot of skill, they're very skillful, they're very enterprising. But what obviously, like I just mentioned, there's no guideline for them. So there's not much awareness. But the barriers that I've faced, and especially when I'll speak about the men, why I feel that they should be engaged in, this awareness, or, making them aware of why it is important for the woman of the house to be contributing as well.
Yeah.
Some of the challenges that we face is when we go out in the field is that number one, there's not much awareness. Number two, because it's a male dominated society, so the women are not really allowed to get out of the house, which is why when we go out in the fields, we make sure that we have female agents, our officers that are there. The environment that we provide them is safe, they feel secure, and so do the men of their house feel safe sending them over there for that. But there's some challenges that we do face is, for example, if we talk about financially including women, and we want to really focus on empowering them by digital financial literacy. So obviously we want them to have a phone, see what they can do with the phone from sitting at the comfort of their house. So the barriers that we do face is that most of the women don't own a phone. Because of our social norm. And number two, even if they do own a phone, or if there is a smartphone in the house, let's say, or there is a phone in the house, it is not owned by the woman, it's shared. So the ownership usually lies with the man. Number two, then for example, if you want to have a digital account, which means you need to have a SIM on your name. A registered SIM. So mostly women are not allowed to do that.
Right.
So these are the major barriers, and then the mindset that they have. For example, if I can be fully equipped, I can give them the financial training, they'll understand that, they'll be interested. But and then I'll have people over there, agents, female agents over there, who will be there to help them, to bring them on board, that we'll help you open an account, we'll guide you through the process. But it's always the mindset that sometimes the women always say, no, we need to discuss this with the man of the house. So which is why I also feel that the men should be equally engaged in these campaigns, because I feel that they are the gatekeepers. So unless and until we don't change their mindset, we don't bring awareness to them that why is it important, how it can benefit their own household, their quality of life, why it is important for their daughter or their wife or even their mother for that matter to be contributing into the economy of the house.
And I think that's a very interesting discussion, because Fahim alluded to the concept of the safe spaces and how it intersects particularly in the South Asian society with the concept of honor. And like our worthy guest, esteemed guest mentioned here, that how a lot of people, they feel scared to let their daughters out, to let their women of their households out, because they feel that the environment is not that safe, right? So now let's gear and steer a conversation towards this concept that yes, I mean, when we talk about the feminist movements and women empowerment, there is generally a belief that they are oppressed, and there's particularly patriarchal norms that are very oppressive, not just for the women, but I think equally for the men too, right? And you talked about how men should be also included in this. I mean, they're not competitor, obviously, they are their partners there. So can you also talk about, because different sort of a women face different sort of a struggles or challenges, so women of KPK might not be facing the same sort of challenges or the struggles as those of Punjab or Sindh, or for that matter the urban women, right? So what are the different products that you design out there, and how receptive are the women out there? Because obviously an urban woman teaching a rural woman out there might be a gap of the miscommunication or the challenges that comes.
So what
with
we
that.
do, basically what we do is, for example, you're exactly right that what we do bring awareness, but then of course a female we have female agents, and we have onboarded, like let's say, we would say they're the champions of change. We would like to give them that title, that they go and they educate these women, and they have that comfort level. But at the same time, I just feel that these women need to be given that empowerment, but that also comes from the house. And I would also like to mention, like I just mentioned, because you mentioned our norms and our society and how it's male dominated and it's not looked good upon. But I feel that the generation next, even in our rural areas, they are more progressive. They would want their mother to be digitally, she should be able to know what her finances are. She should be earning in the house, which is why one of the things that we work on is that we want to equip them digitally. So for example, they can open a bank account through their phone. They don't need to leave the house. They can do the biometric via the camera of the phone. So that way, then we have our different apps that what we've done, like for example, so if somebody comes on board on our digital app, that is, so our motto, let's say, would be Mera Phone Mera Bank. So that is that basically her phone turns into her bank account, because we do understand that she's not allowed to go out, and it will not be looked good upon, and there's so many barriers that she has to face. So like if she has that knowledge and she's given that belief that yes, from her phone, like for example, they come on our digital app, so what we can do is we have designed an interface specifically for women. So if a woman who is registered on our app, she logs into our app, the interface completely changes, obviously as per their language, whatever they choose, if it's English or it's Urdu, and all the female centric products, they pop up, so that it's more easier for her to see and learn. Then we also, because we want to educate them, so we also have embedded a learning LMS, which is a learning management system, so that whoever is registered on our app can, in Urdu, we have a whole material curriculum for them. For example, savings, what are savings, what are their expenses, if they want to like upscale their business, how they should do that, how to set up a business. So all of these things are over there for them, so that they can go through it as per their understanding. And then of course we have our different agents who are there and those agents are basically people in the village who are influential people. So like Hajra mentioned, for example, if I just go and stand in the village and say that I want to talk to your women, they might not be so reciprocatal towards me, because they do not relate to me, they don't identify with me. Of course I'm a woman, but then like she just said that
the
different experiences and their challenges are different, like in every city. So we focus on that, and also we focus on the fact that a very thorough ground market research should be done. Like we need to go to the grassroots level, go and talk to these women, see what are their requirements, because one thing a lot is being done on is products are made and they're just given a pink color, which
I think that's a very important thing, researching about it in Kudatul Land. So I am a lay person, so obviously you are an expert in the field of financial digital literacy, and now I want to tap in the very important conversation surrounding the TikTok, the app. And there was when it was getting popular, so there was a sense of elitism, a sort of a criticism that was coming in. So the content that is produced on TikTok is very mediocre, it's very I would like to say it's very ruler centric, right? And that was creating a wave within the urban mindset, right? They're saying that it's very mediocre, it's not very nice, and then there were conversation of banning it because it's degrading the conversation regarding the morality in it and ethics and whatnot, right? But I mean, whether you accept it or not, TikTok is a very pertinent and a very strong sort of a medium who's giving voice to the voiceless people of the rural areas, right? So when we talk about the TikTok, does it figure out in your conversation regarding the digital financial literacy?
Yes, I think such platforms, like you just said, like we need to accept it that it has it reaches out to the masses, and the masses use it a lot. They relate to it more. So I think using these platforms, you know, for such purposes, for example, financial literacy, and even the initiatives that we take, or if we have any campaigns or we want to market any financial literacy session, we do use TikTok as a platform, because we do understand that its outreach is huge, and we want to make an impact. So of course, using other social media options, we do opt for TikTok, because yes, it does reach out, and microfinance is basically reaching out to the low income, underserved, unbanked people, and mostly they are people who are on TikTok, especially our rural people.
And like you said, that the men of the house should also be involved, which is, I think, a very progressive thinking and good thinking as far as the rural mindset is concerned. Do you also keep in mind the clergy people of the villages, because they also have a very huge impact on the mindsets of the village people?
Yes. And they're the community leaders
basically
out there.
Exactly. So yes, when I was mentioning earlier, we do engage them, of course, because obviously we do focus on women, but then we also need, you know, for them to be more educated and upskilled as well, the whole of the community, as a whole community. So then where I talk about the men being, because they're the gatekeepers, and engaging them, so we do engage with the clergymen of the community, because I feel that they have a huge influence on that. It really helps, to be honest. Like I just said, if I would go, maybe less people would end up listening to me, but if I go through that channel, I will get a much better response.
True, like they say, that give me an educated mother and I'll give you an educated nation.
Yeah.
And financial literacy is something that I find, and many people, when they hear the term financial literacy, they think that, okay, this is something which is perhaps not for me. This has a lot of terms which I might not be able to understand. I don't have that mindset that I will be able to perhaps manage my finances.
And the way they are structured, I mean, there's a lot of, I don't know, for the lack of better word, red tapeism, I would say, involved in that, right? That this procedure, then there's this procedure, and when you talk about dealing with the urban people, rural people, so they might not be very comfortable with all of those procedures. And obviously, I understand that when you're working in a structures, when you're working in the banking sector, you need to document all of those things, right? So how do you make it more relatable to those people out there?
So you see, what we do, what we're trying to do is, obviously, because we identify that there are a lot of barriers. So what we want to do is simplify the process for them, which is why we focus on the fact that, like for example, I just mentioned that, their phone can be their bank account. So, by just, getting registered, and then, we bring them into that banking system. So for example, if there's a woman who's she's never been to a bank, she's never been to a branch, and she might not be allowed to, or there might be some, she might not be allowed by the men of the house, so she can always come into that financial ecosystem by sitting at her comfort of her home, and then providing them. We also try to provide value added services. So once she is onboarded, then there is, like for example, there'll be rebated health insurance for her family, there'll be free OPD services for her while sitting at home online.
Lovely.
So we're working on that, because we do understand that, we want to simplify the process for them. So for that, they need to be tapped into that. But then again, my always focus is that, the first very step is to create awareness, to give them financial training, literacy training, and to change the mindset.
Now,
there's a lot of work being done on it, and there has been a slight change. We've seen a change, but of course, the mindset is still there. So we need to work on that, and so that the women can feel empowered.
And also, you were mentioning something about everything women related is pink, and you were talking something of perhaps changing that too. Could you elaborate on that as well?
Yes. So like I said, that for example, I mean, there's a lot of talk about women empowerment and financial inclusion, not just in Pakistan, all over the world. But every country has its own issues, like and I feel that like I just mentioned, that a very detailed market research needs to be done. We need to interact with these women. We need to go to the ground level and figure out what their issues are, and then design products according to them, instead of just making a product and just making it pink and say it's for a female. Maybe a female doesn't require that. For example, I'll just give you an example. If there is a debit card, which we say that this is a pink debit card and it's for the woman. Now you tell me what use of that debit card would be to a woman who's in the rural area. So we need to figure out, for example, what are their issues, like, or what issues do they face? Is there no network coverage over there? If they're in the agriculture side, since there's a lot of climate change happening, the disasters happening, the floods happening, and so we also have initiated recently a climate change program called Change to Sustain, in which we of course want to work around, and our focus is to make women also climate resilient, to make them aware, because there was a report, UN report, that when the floods happened, 80% of the people who were misplaced or dislodged were women.
That's
and they're the most affected ones when such disasters happen, because agriculture in Pakistan plays a big role in our GDP.
True.
And it is well known that in the agriculture, informally, all the work is being done by the women.
That's
They're taking care of the livestock, they're helping in the harvesting, and so when such climate change disasters happen, like for example droughts or floods for that matter, because Pakistan faced a lot of floods recently, and there was a lot of destruction and a lot of livelihoods were affected. So it was the women who then get the most affected, because they get dislodged, they get subjected to domestic violence. So we wanted to, again, like I said, I'll focus on the research part. So in that, what we want to do is make them climate resilient, do the research, go engage with different institutions and go as partner up with them and go to these villages, to these areas, make them aware of how they can be more prepared for the next time that such disasters happen, because obviously it's nature, you can't fight nature.
Of course.
And then of course we want to come up with a product. We want to work on women who are affected in agriculture by the climate change disasters. So I feel that needs to be done, and we want to come up with products around that. So for example, we can tap in crop insurance. So if there is the heat wave is there, the droughts are over there, the flood is over there. So for example, if the crop gets damaged, so their livelihoods will be affected. So,
and I think that would be a great initiative. And Kuratulan, first of all, thank you for taking our time and coming here. It's been an immense pleasure. And secondly, I think we need more people like Kuratulan to head different organizations, departments, to take such initiatives as far as women are concerned, because women tend to be the most vulnerable segment of a society, which does get affected, like Hajra was saying, like Kuratulan was saying, like the UN reports are saying. So definitely such initiatives would help tremendously as far as our nation is concerned, as far as the whole globe is concerned.
And so we will further develop this conversation, after the short break. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back after the break. Good morning.
Welcome back to World This Morning with Hajra Satbi and Fahim Bangash. We were having a very interesting conversation regarding the inclusivity of women as far as the economy of the country is concerned, economy of the nation is concerned, be it Pakistan or any other part of the world. We will continue with that similar discussion, but on a different angle in our next segment. And for that, we have a very interesting guest lined up for you, and that is Ms. Sadaf Khalid Khan. She's here with us on Skype, and Ms. Sadaf Khalid Khan is CEO and global consultant, and we will be discussing with her the role of women and the climate change, which is rampant all over the world. Ms. Sadaf Khan, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to PTV World.
Thank you so much, and wa alaikum assalam.
Right. Thank you so much, Ms. Sadaf, for joining us. So we've seen that how you particularly work in the tourism industry, and we have seen that how tourism industry is vulnerable to the gigantic shifts that we are witnessing across the globe when we talk about the climate change. And Pakistan has an immense and a beautiful tourism potential, and we see that within Pakistan there are crores of people who flock towards the northern areas in search of the mountainous retreats. But when we talk about the climate change, obviously those particular valleys, areas, mountains, hills, they are more vulnerable to all of these climatic changes. So what is some of the recent trends that you have witnessed when we talk about climate change and its impact on the tourism, and how can we make Pakistan a more climate resilient country when we talk about a conversation on tourism?
Thank you so much, and raising a very important and pertinent question currently when the peak tourist summer season has started for tourism. I would respond earlier when your colleague mentioned about the women's role in Pakistan's economy. is, I think, very important. When I talk about women empowerment in Pakistan, since I'm also working as a social activist in the rural community, in the grassroots community up in the northern areas of Pakistan, I feel that a woman who's working in our agriculture and harvesting a wheat crop is also contributing to the GDP of Pakistan. So, women role in Pakistan and its economy is very important. Name it in different sectors, whether it's tourism, whether it's climate change, politics as well, and other industries that we talk about. Coming back to your question, yes, climate change is creating havoc when we talk about all across Pakistan and in terms of sustainable tourism and the projects and the challenges that Pakistan is facing. Currently, the basic five challenges which I feel, which the private sector, the corporate sector, and the government is also realizing that we all need to work together on these challenges. Number one, what I feel is the waste management projects and the garbage and the plastic pollution all across Pakistan. That is one of the most important issues which Pakistan is facing, and we need to work with local collaboration and international experts bringing into Pakistan. Second, I feel when you talk about tourism in the northern areas or all across Pakistan, is capacity building and skill development and engaging the communities is very important, as I discussed in your previous show when we had a few months earlier, is we need to educate the people in that area who are bearing the front of climate change in those areas. Thirdly, what important is the air index quality. The pollution figures are alarming when we talk about even cities like Punjab and Lahore. Recently in COP28, the reports that were shared with us when I was the global coordinator on that COP28 in Dubai was that in 10 years' time, if we don't tackle these issues over there seriously, in 100 people, 10 people are going to die of the respiratory issues. So these all issues, when we talk about climate change, are quite complex and are quite important. And for that, as I said, especially the role of women, I'm very happy to share that a lot of female all across Pakistan, especially the youth, are coming in front and they want to help as a private entity to work on these projects. Over to you guys.
Right, and Sadaf, you have tapped in some very, very important points, very pertinent point, and that's a very interesting discussion because one thing that I have witnessed also, because when I moved to northern areas, is the propping up of the concrete jungles. I would say in terms of how people are slaughtering a lot of trees from the northern areas, and they are constructing their hotels because obviously tourism is flourishing there, it's blooming there, and these trees are actually the forest that has taken thousands of years to grow because they're so unique, they're so pristine, and this is exactly
and of course, Hajra, like you were telling earlier, due to the climate change, due to the landsliding, so many of those precious trees have been destroyed. So what would you say about that? Because obviously nature has a part to play in that, but all of it has been the doing of the man.
And also, Sadaf, when we talk about the concrete jungles, when we talk about construction going on within the northern areas, and it's a very rampant sort of a construction, there is, I don't think so, any limit to that, right? So how do you suggest that we include the local communities there to own their jungles more? Because those local communities, those jungles there, the forests, they are their source of livelihood because people want to escape towards those mountainous areas because of those particular trees, and slaughtering them is not the solution in the first place. So how can we make them more responsible for their own jungles?
Yes, very important question you guys raised. So deforestation is a very vital issue, not only in the northern areas, but in all across Pakistan. And what we need to realize, the flood situation in Pakistan since 2010 and 2022, and also, we need to realize the climate shift, the glaciers melting up in the northern areas in the Himalayas are rapidly increasing. And that's why we are getting these floods and rapid climatic changes up in the northern parts. For this, there is going to be a very big collaborative effort also from the government side. I feel it's not only the community awareness programs will help these issues. Need to realize in Pakistan also the governments in Gilgit-Baltistan, the KP government, Punjab, Balochistan, Sindh, AJK, all the provinces for that matter need to realize that, look, if the community there, the source of survival is cutting trees over there is because the government has not been able to give them alternate source of energy. When the temperatures are -10, -20 in the winter season, they need to survive. If you give them electricity or alternate source of energy through, we are talking about small hydro projects, what I always recommend, don't have ambitious plans, or solar energy has come into Pakistan on a very fast track, but you need to provide those basic infrastructure in those areas. Then only we'll be able to cut down the deforestation issues so that community is not the cutting the trees and the climate shift is happening in those areas. Other thing also...
Right.
Can you hear us, Sadaf?
Yes, was I audible? Yeah.
Yes, you are.
Sure, go on.
Okay.
So, Sadaf, we've also seen when we talk about the role of indigenous communities in our fight against the climate change. So, we've seen particularly when we talk about ethical tourism or the green tourism, we've seen number one, littering is one of the problem, right? And you've mentioned very beautifully that how waste management is a very pertinent issue and government needs to have more proactive role when we talk about regulating the waste that is coming from the tourism. And secondly, Sadaf, when we talk about the green tourism, when we talk about the ethical tourism, how important do you think is the role of local communities in training them? Because when you're going to the tourist spots, right, so you really don't know the ways and you're asking the local communities there what is the way and which are the most pristine locations there. And if they are not better able to cater to the tourists there, if they do not have the right mannerism or etiquette, I mean, that's a flaw in the tourism, a big gap, right? So as someone who is involved in this tourism industry, how much initiatives do you think are being taken in this regard to train the local community?
Well, again, yes, that's a very important discussion that you brought up, is waste management, not only in northern areas, but I'll start with the capital city, Islamabad, where we all live in. We have what we need to understand, the whole, like in the global world, how these projects people work on. The local municipalities outsource is to private companies, and the whole system of waste management happens from recycling to waste collecting to landfills, and then there's a whole process of circular economy. So then the government at the local level, at the provincial level, what they need to understand is the local municipality companies, they need to have that kind of waste management system and outsource it to local companies or international companies for that matter coming into Pakistan. Then only we'll be able to tackle the issues of garbage and waste management in those areas. And we are also ignoring the fact that it's not just climate change, plastic pollution. Do you understand that the data that we receive, our health ministry, it's affecting the health of the humans and the Pakistanis living in those areas? They don't have access to clean drinking water anymore. 30 years ago, people in the north used to drink water from those springs and rivers. They're all polluted. It's affecting the health also on these issues that we're talking about. So it's like a huge, complex kind of project management. The stakeholders, what I will repeat, people listening live, it has to be a collaborative effort like Partnership for Goals, what the United Nations is asking, even in countries like Africa, India, Bangladesh, Vietnam, and countries like Pakistan, government, local community, private stakeholders, the bureaucracy, municipalities. So it's a whole cycle of different organizations would be involved to work on these projects. Over to you guys.
Right. Sadaf, and I was saying a few days back that we have been talking about climate change ever since we were children. But now we're talking about it more than ever because now it has started to affect us more than ever. Sure. Now, how do you think, just one last question then before we wind up, how do you think we can actually implement this? Because obviously we have been talking about this in programs, in awareness programs, in different seminars and workshops, but obviously then still a lot more needs to be done as far as climate change is concerned, as far as curbing climate change is concerned, especially at an individual level, because we still see plastic bags being sold in different shops. We still see people littering here and there. And I'm talking about bigger cities like Islamabad, Pindi, Peshawar, Lahore and Karachi. I'm not even going to the rural areas. How do you think that can be stopped? Do you think fines should be imposed? Do you think more and more robust efforts need to be made as far as educating the participants and the stakeholders are concerned?
And how can we walk the talk basically about it?
Exactly, yes. So the role of implementation of laws. So Pakistan, it's not that Pakistan do not have laws when we talk about these issues. So we need to, of course, regulate and implement strict laws when it comes to these issues. And another important thing that you raised is that I think it's high time that our HSC, Higher Education Commission, need to have a strategy plan and integrate climate education in the syllabus at the primary to the higher and the secondary level. What's happening in the global world is that Sustainable Development Goals, working on these issues, they're integrating it into the curriculum and education. So that is very important. If our youth, 56% population of Pakistan is the youth, and you integrate this climate education at the government level in government schools and private schools, that would be the first step when we talk about these issues. We're educating our people. And then secondly, of course, regulation of laws and implementation of laws on these issues are very important.
Right, actually, you're very right that children need to be educated, and more than that, I think even parents need to be educated, because children, they copy their parents as far as actions are concerned, and we need to make sure that this comes to the minds. We need to change the mindset of people, that it's the individual responsibility of each and every person living in the society, because this is our home. This is what we're going to leave for our children. We see hospitals full of newborn babies. What sort of a world are we leaving for the newborn babies to live in? We should not leave for them a horrible place to live in. We should work towards it. We should be responsible enough, and we should play our part as far as creating a beautiful environment for our upcoming generations are concerned. And with this, I think we will bid you farewell. Till our next program, it's a goodbye from all of us. Look after yourselves, have a wonderful day, and good morning.
Thank you so much.